Hey everybody, Jeff Williams with Armor Insurance Agency located right here in Miles City, Montana. Back again, and today we are talking about the history of car insurance in the state of Montana. So, if you're ready, let's get started. Well, here we are talking about Montana's car insurance journey. And that journey, it didn't start until about 1951. In 1951, Montana enacted its first financial responsibility laws. Prior to that, nobody ever had to buy insurance for cars anyway. I mean, it just wasn't a thing. However, apparently people were kind of, well, I guess what they considered reckless. And because of that, it was felt necessary to enact the financial laws. The legislation aimed to enhance road safety by addressing reckless driving. The act established minimum liability requirements. And remember, liability is what pays the other guy. The liability requirements were determined to be split limits. So instead of one big pot that everything comes out of, it was three little pots. The first little pot was $5,000 for bodily injury or death of any one person in any one accident. The second pot was $10,000 for two or more persons in any one accident. And the third pot was $1,000 for property damage in any one accident. Now, this measure was the start of Montana's efforts to ensure the financial responsibility among drivers and protect the victims of motor vehicle accidents. Let's fast forward to 1967. In 1967, we got version 2.0. And the reason we got version 2.0 is because the limits that were originally set back in 1951, 16 years before, were found to be insufficient. They wanted to increase the value to the victims of motor vehicles accidents. And they wanted to try and discourage people from driving recklessly because apparently the numbers hadn't done that. So they increased the requirements for minimum liability, the requirement for bodily injury or death of any one person in any one accident increased from $5,000 to $10,000. For two or more persons in any one accident increased from $10,000 to $20,000. And property damage in any one accident increased from $1,000 to $5,000. The intent was to try and increase those numbers so that they provided more protection for the victims of motor vehicle accidents, but they also still believed that it would decrease the amount of reckless driving that occurred on Montana roads. 8 years later, in 1975, the saga continues. They decided that the limits were no longer sufficient because of the increased cost of medical care and the increased cost just to fix things. So they increased two of the split limits. They increased the bodily injury or death of any one person in any one accident from $10,000 to $25,000. And they increased the any two individuals, or two or more individuals, I should say, in any one accident from $20,000 to $50,000. They did not address the property at that time. The attempt was a genuine attempt to try and account for the economic increase in cost during that period of time. 4 years later, 1979, the next revision occurs. It had only been 4 years, but what they did is they realized in that period of time that people were kind of abusing the system. Now, in order to register your vehicle at that time, you had to have insurance, but there was nothing in the law about maintaining that insurance. So what people were doing was registering their car, they had their insurance, and then not renewing their insurance. Why would you? Why would you want to pay for that? And there really was nothing to hold them accountable for it. So the loophole got closed in 1979, and that legislation mandated that you must maintain a continuous policy. So it's in the statute currently. You have to have a continuous policy, which means you buy the insurance, you maintain the insurance. So that's what happens. At that time as well, They realized that there was really no penalties for people. So if there's no penalties, then there's nothing really for enforcement. So they also established the enforcement that was going to occur. The next revision of the Montana financial responsibility laws occurred a full decade later in 1989. In 1989, Senate Bill 87 was passed. And what that bill did was increase the property damage liability requirement from $5,000 to $10,000. And that was reflective of the increased cost to fix vehicles at the time. The next update occurred 24 years later in 2013. In 2013, the cost of repairing vehicles was ridiculous, and they realized that the limits that they had at the time were way insufficient. The limits were increased from $10,000 to where they are today, which is $20,000. The intent was really to provide a more comprehensive protection for the victims of motor vehicle accidents. Another decade later, in 2023, the last attempt to modify the minimum liability requirements in the state of Montana was made. It was House Bill 205, and it was proposed in an attempt to increase the property liability component from $20,000 to $50,000. And that was reflecting the increased cost to repair vehicles because they just cost a lot more now. Unfortunately, that was tabled by the Senate chair of the Judiciary Committee, and that effectively killed the bill. So there have been no change or attempts to change the minimum liability since that time, at the time of this recording. So where are we now? We still have the split limits of $25,000, $50,000, $20,000. The $25,000 is for bodily injury or death of any one person in any one accident. The $50,000 is bodily injury or death of any two or more persons in any one accident, and $20,000 property damage in any one accident. If you had the minimum liability and you were in an accident and you were liable for it, and it was a serious accident and people got hurt and a lot of damage happened, is that going to be enough? That's a question you ought to be asking yourself when you're considering what your limits are going to be for your car insurance. I would suggest to you that it is not, and this is why. In 1975, purchasing power of $1 is equivalent to $5.90 of a 2025 dollar. That means that the $25,000 that's available and the $50,000 are equivalent to $147,500 and $295,000 respectively in today's dollars. So on your limits, you really should have somewhere around there. Property damage, last time it was modified was in 2013. $1, the purchasing power of $1 in 2013 is equivalent to the purchasing power of $1.35 in 2025. And what that means is that it's roughly $27,000 now. But if you look in it, there's a parking lot on the other side of the window over there. If you damaged if you damage any of those vehicles in an accident and that caused significant damage, that number, 20,000, is unlikely to actually cover it. It's your choice what you do. I'm just wanting to make sure that everybody understands what the numbers are and why they're that way. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it was helpful. And if you need to talk about insurance, we're always available. Give us a call. All right. You have yourself a good day. Bye now.